Hey, welcome to the Yankees Go Yard podcast. Madam Weinrib alongside Thomas Carannante. I'm back. Aaron Boone's back. But for how long is Aaron Boone back? We got to talk about it. For the first time in forever, the Yankees' actions don't match their words here. Boone will return on the one-year option attached to his current contract. But beyond that, we will see. Boone talked a lot this week about personnel plans. He'll be in the Juan Soto meeting. He's bothered by Joe Kelly's criticism, to which I say, all right, fine, then back it up with your play. We got some coaching shuffles yesterday. We've got Hal's meeting with Soto. We got Caleb Durbin at third, the AFL All-Star game. We got a lot to talk about. To help me break it down is Thomas Carannante. Every Monday, Thursday, 2 o'clock Eastern, but today is a Tuesday, still 2 o'clock Eastern, and we'll be back on Thursday at 2 o'clock Eastern. How's that sound? Thomas, what's going on?
Today is Tuesday. Isn't that weird? Doesn't feel like it. What have I got on the docket here? I made chili last night because it got kind of cold. It's my off-season update. Stove is cold. Can somebody do something? You know, I was talking to my friend yesterday. I have a couple of those. And why is Major League Baseball the only offseason that does this? NFL free agency, NBA free agency. The free agency starts before the free agency even starts. Mm-hmm. Like, you get all the NBA rumors 2 hours before the deadline starts. NFL free agency, people start agreeing to terms before the window officially opens. There's always these tampering penalties. And look, I don't want tampering penalties, but at least those teams are being aggressive and having some fun, willing to get punished in some capacity to get the player they want. Meanwhile, Major League Baseball is like, well, we'll start the offseason 5 days after the World Series, and then you'll wait another 6 weeks after that for anything to really happen. So what's the biggest thing we've seen so far? Michael Walker re-signing with the Royals. That has to be it, right? $72 million contract.
And it's a re-signing, too. Like,
yeah.
Oh, congrats on cut. The Royals found something that worked last year. They added, instead of sitting on their hands, 50-win team became a playoff team, and they said, we like that. Let's bring that guy back. A little continuity. And since that moment in time, fucking nothing.
Yeah, very boring. There's been some minor trades. I know there's roster housekeeping to take care of, but I don't know.
Yankees fans, I know you guys all wanted Nick Allen of the Oakland A's. He's going to the Braves, so you can't have 175 hitting 5'6" Nick Allen on the New York Yankees roster next year.
Nick Allen is actually married to Aaron Boone's daughter.
I was just going to say, is he not a Boone family member? I couldn't remember.
He's a Boone family member.
Yeah.
Let's see. Nick Allen, Aaron Boone.
I'm Googling the same thing. That's what we're at. That's where we're at these days. It's November 12th. We're Googling, did the only interesting player to get traded, is he somehow married to Aaron Boone? Family member. Yeah.
Married to Savannah, or no, I'm sorry, Boone's niece, Savannah.
Mm-hmm. Brett Boone's daughter.
Cool. Riveting stuff.
According to Yahoo, and this is an aggregation of the Daily News, Allen doesn't have the accolades of the Boone brothers, their father Bob or grandfather Ray. Slam. Harsh slam. Why include that?
Savagery. You got to hit that 300 minimum word count, because how much are you going to write about Savannah Boone getting married to Nick Allen?
Well, obviously, this is sort of an alarm bell that we should probably cover that on yanksgoyard.com. Obviously,
ding dong.
We got to talk about it's the news of the day. But other than that, precious little is happening other than Aaron Boone having a press conference upon his return. He doesn't even give us that much information, but we're trying to read between the lines, doing the best that we can. And sometimes I feel like we're scratching and clawing and we're trying to make something out of nothing. In this instance, a rare instance where I feel like we are accurately making something out of something. Boone is coming back, as Andy Martino announced pretty much right after the World Series ended. I could have announced that before the World Series ended. I pretty much did announce that between the ALCS and the World Series. If you thought, look, I know we have impossibly high standards, and I also think they're reasonably high standards. But even with our current standards, okay, Boone's gone if he doesn't make it out of the division series. I get that. I think he would have been gone, but then he did. and he beat the Manager of the Year finalist Matt
Sure.
Quatraro in the process. Boone's gone if he doesn't make it out of the ALCS. I mean, I don't think that was reasonable. I think going to the World Series being your limit on whether Boone stays or goes, probably not realistic. And then he makes it out of the CS, makes it to the World Series, and outmanages Manager of the Year finalist Stephen Vogt. So far, 2 rounds of the playoffs in. It's just the AL Central, but Boone, legitimately, I would say, outfoxed 2 young, red-hot Manager of the Year candidates who have less experience than he did. Quatraro made some questionable bullpen moves, bringing in the soft-tossing lefty Bubic to face Giancarlo Stanton in the pivotal Game 3 that ended up being the game that tilted the tide there, pulling Waka so early in Game 1 that ended up being a back-and-forth affair for the remainder of the game. Vogt managed to get his bullpen burned out. I know you're short-staffed there anyway. You don't have real starters. You have Tanner Bybee going an inning and 2/3 in Game 2. He did the best he could, but I don't think he did a fantastic job in that series. It was his first real playoff baptism after facing the Tigers in the previous round. There's my Aaron Boone praise. He also appeared to bring the locker room together. There were some great stories in The Athletic about championship belts and Polaroid walls and what have you. The players love him. He was never going anywhere, especially not after winning. If he loses that first round matchup, we can have a conversation. But once he wins it, no way. And once he beats 2 Manager of the Year finalists and goes to the literal World Series, no chance. That's it. Sloppy team all year, sloppy team in the World Series. We talked on a previous show, like, hey, can I blame Aaron Judge dropping the easiest 100% catch probability fly ball ever on Aaron Boone? No. But can I blame the lack of preparedness in the headlights on Aaron Boone? Yes. Jazz Chisholm being an unprepared third baseman, I'm going to blame that on Brian Cashman. He's not a third baseman, and they acquired him to play third base, and he was by and large pretty good. But overall, round pegs and square holes, players being well-liked by their manager breeds lack of accountability. Gleyber Torres got punished repeatedly last year. No one else did. Alex Verdugo never not in the lineup despite not hustling to the same extent that Torres did. Defense never made sense. Outfield alignment. So supposed stat heads and statisticians, all these big old brains in the Yankees, front office can't figure out how to properly align the outfield and shift them. I think the team's culture when they're winning is fantastic, and when they're losing is terrible. And I think that falls on Aaron Boone's shoulders. 2 stories are true. His experience was leaned upon nicely in this year's postseason. Then, when it came time to make decisions in the World Series spotlight, he made a bad one in Game 1. He made a bad one, really, really, truly bad one in Game 1. And it set the tone for the rest of the series, which was defined by the Yankees' sloppiness. So, take the good with the bad. There are better managers than Aaron Boone. There are worse managers than Aaron Boone. I know that's not what anybody wants to hear. But if you thought the Yankees bringing him back for 2025 was just this endorsement that nothing would ever change, and you might be right because we don't know what happens in 2026. The fact of the matter is they brought him back for next year. They did not extend him. He is on a lame duck contract. This is a make or break year for Boone. I asked Robert Murray on the Baseball Insiders this morning if I was reading too much into that. He said no, fair to consider it a make or break year. No contract extension talks right now, says Boone yesterday. So, do you have any faith that if 2025 is some sort of catastrophic flameout that the Yankees would make a change? I think the caveat is nobody wants a catastrophic flameout. Nobody really wants to find out. I'm not rooting for the team to suck next year so that they can get rid of Aaron Boone at the end of the season. I'd like them to figure it out and win the World Series and bring Juan Soto back. That's a preferable outcome. Aaron Boone is not Daniel Jones to me, where it's like, I will do whatever it takes to get this man gone, and then we can move on with our lives. I don't know. I mean, Aaron Boone managed them deftly through the AL playoffs this year and fumbled the bag in the World Series. I think they were probably outmatched and outmanned anyway. I don't think it's impossible to think they can win the World Series with Boone at the helm, but they're gonna maybe make a big decision and a big pivot after next season, which I think is progress. They're not resting on their laurels here, but also they somewhat are because Boone is returning.
Yeah. First comment on Boone, the manager. The fact of the matter is this: whenever it comes down to Aaron Boone going up against a supposed equal or greater than, he loses. I don't know if that's the Yankees' fault. I don't know if it's fully his fault, but the fact of the matter. And you look, you don't need the best manager in the game, right? But Yankees fans are always involved in these discussions where it's like, well, why don't we have the best left fielder? And why don't we have the best shortstop? And what about the best catcher? And how about the best bench coach too? Don't need all that. All I'd like from Aaron Boone is, I think, what everybody else has been saying: accountability, discipline, tightness around fundamentals, tightness around the basics of the game. And the Yankees don't have that. No. So at that point, you ask yourself, what is the reason for this manager being here? And for me, there's no reason for Aaron Boone to be here outside of Brian Cashman just saying, hey, I want this guy that follows my instructions, because that makes life easier for everybody. And that I can understand, but you've seen it throughout every single Yankees playoff run. He's run into a roadblock against Alex Cora, AJ Hinch, Kevin Cash, Alex Cora again. Who was managing Dusty Baker in 2022. Yeah. And then this year, Dave Roberts. All of those guys were either more experienced or just flat out better than Aaron Boone. So there's a clear obstacle that the Yankees need to overcome that they don't want to invest in at this moment. I'm not going to discredit what Boone did this year, but on paper, for the average fan looking at what Aaron Boone had done, it is expected for him to beat the Royals and the Guardians. I do believe that he did a very good job, and he made it clear that there was a considerable managerial gap between him and Matt Quatraro and him and Stephen Vogt. But again, simply not good enough. He either got outmanaged by Dave Roberts or allowed the door to be open for Dave Roberts to manage a little bit more liberally than he would have liked to, which allowed for greater opportunity for the Dodgers and allowed for them to take the World Series in 5 games. So that's first and foremost. It's, again, to me, it's a low energy move to keep Boone in town. It's more of it's more from an image perspective, and I don't understand what the image is, because it's not like Aaron Boone is at all face of the New York Yankees. Like, I think he stays or goes, nothing changes with this organization and how people are viewing it from the outside. Anyway, whatever the case, you want to keep Boone, great. I don't bring him back as a lame duck with no contract extension. And with maybe they're waiting to see what happens in free agency. That's perhaps my guess, because bringing him back for 2025 and not guaranteeing him a year beyond that is essentially you're saying, okay, get to the World Series again and we'll talk. Or this is confirmation we're moving on from you after 2025. And then at that point, it's like, okay, well, why don't you just try something new for 2025 then, instead of throwing another year into the void, or at least a year in which you don't feel like Aaron Boone is going to take you to where you need to be. And unpopular opinion here, because I don't want it, but the answer is either you let Aaron Boone go right now, or you sign Aaron Boone for how he's been with the Yankees for 7 years. They want him to be for 10 years, extend him through that 10th year. And that's that. It shows that this is what you're invested in, that this core of players trust him, that this front office trusts him. Whether the public likes it or not is neither here nor there. It is what it is. They've defied the public's, essentially, since he came on board, he's been opposed, right? When the Yankees is pretty much fired Joe Girardi, everybody was like, okay, we understand that probably the Joe Girardi era was coming to an end, but like, why the fuck now? Mm-hmm. Why, when you're within 1 game of the World Series and he managed to motivate everybody on that roster to get to that point, why is now when you're going to cut the cord? So Aaron Boone being brought in was met with a bit of contention. And then after the wild card loss, when he again had the same situation where it was pickup contract option, and extend or decline contract option and move on, they picked it up. Everybody was pissed. They gave him a 3-year extension. Everybody was pissed. And now we're back. We're back right here. So I don't know what the strategy is. My best guess would be, however, see where the Yankees land in free agency, because Trevor Plouffe mentioned this. I was listening to Talking Baseball yesterday, and I don't fully discount it, but like, if the Yankees are a wild card team or worse next year, and like by wild card team, I mean get to the, you get into the playoffs as a wild card, you either get eliminated in the wild card round or the DS.
Or crappy division champion, but that's pretty unlikely because the AL champion is probably going to win a lot of games.
Yeah, well, and I think this would even be harder to justify if you were to win the division. But he's like, if the Yankees are kind of wild card or worse next year, and they don't bring back Juan Soto, like, are you talking about trading Aaron Judge in the offseason of 2025? I mean, you tell me, guys. Mm-hmm. This team didn't make the playoffs in 2023 with a very incomplete roster. When Judge was injured.
Yeah.
We are looking at a successful season because of the addition of Juan Soto and what he was able to do this lineup. So if you look at the Yankees without Juan Soto, with the same exact status quo, I understand they won 99 games in 2022, but we saw how ill-prepared they were for the postseason, and that trend continued this year. Like, there were a lot of concerning aspects of their postseason performance, despite the fact that they got to the World Series. But what are you doing after 2025 if you're still treading water or you're not getting to a point where you feel the window of contention is like successful or aggressive? Like, you look at the Dodgers window of contention from like 2015 to present, or 2014 to present. There were steps in the process, right? It was like 2014 playoffs out in the DS. 2015 was that CS or DS? Either way, they got there. 2016 was CS. 2017 World Series. 2018 World Series. 2019 step back DS. 2020 win World Series. So like, there's progression there. There hasn't really been progression with the Yankees. It's been this the entire time. It was 2018 DS, 2019 CS, 2018 DS, 2020 wild card, 2022 CS, but awful. Might as well have been out in the DS. 2023 no playoffs. Now you have World Series, and it was like, honestly felt like an early exit, I think, if we're being honest with how everything transpired. So, again, they're creating more discussion, and I guess it's making our jobs easier because it gives us something to talk about. But like, you look at the Garrett Cole. Yeah, you get the Garrett Cole opt-out situation.
Yeah, I cannot believe we're still talking about Aaron Boone, even after this year. It's been so long.
Yeah, it's again, and he's even said it. I'm talking Yanks when they were like, "How many years have you managed Yankees?" And it was either Jake or John Boy. They were like 7, and Aaron Boone's like, "Man, it's felt a lot longer than that." So like, he knows that it's been kind of interminable, but the Yankees just continued to make something out of nothing. Like the Garrett Cole opt-out was another thing. Everybody shitting their pants for 48 hours only to learn that nothing's happening. Now you pick up Aaron Boone's option, everyone's speculating what's going to happen, and then they're telling, oh, well, nothing's going to happen. And then everyone's thinking, okay, but why? And what's contingent on something happening? I don't know. More confusing. I think kind of not really a vote of confidence in either direction. I think, again, like, this could just be a move to keep Aaron Judge happy. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that's crazy to say at this point.
Bring it back to go as a hitting coach. I mean, what are we doing? What else are we doing to beat big man this offseason?
I don't know. So I'm looking at the Boone situation. I'm very uninspired. And it's not that I generally dislike him. I just, in general, want New York is just any manager talking to the media is important. Any manager talking to their players is important. I don't feel like Aaron Boone's a great communicator. I don't like any of his responses in any of the post-game or pre-game. I just don't. He's never prepared, or it feels like he's contriving every answer, or every answer is contrived. Is that did I use the word properly there? It's just like, hey, so Aaron, what do you think about the lineup today? And he's like, well, the lineup is and it's that the whole time. And it's like, do you not have a convicted answer for anything out there? The simplest of questions. And that permeates to the rest of the locker room, because you see Garrett Cole answer questions. You see Aaron Judge answer questions. Like, to me, the only people who were media trained this year at all were Stanton, Soto, and Verdugo. And Stanton's just been through the ringer long enough where I think he's properly trained himself and he understands. Verdugo, say what you want about him. I think he's a pretty genuine guy. Like, he knows he kind of wears his heart on his sleeve, and it's not he's not lying or like trying to come up with certain responses. And Soto is a different breed. So everybody else on this roster is just like, and I think it's lead by example. Your manager talks like that in the post game or in the pregame. Why are you not gonna? So I don't know. Boone's here, sure, 2025, I guess. If there's no extension and there's no major additions, like, why even watch next year? That's my opinion.
I honestly cannot believe we're still talking about Aaron Boone's status. We know he's coming back, and fans from other teams come at us like, "Oh my God, dude, how are you not firing Boone after this?" And I'm like, "Just watch. We're not going to fire Boone after this, and we don't fire Boone after this." The difference in baseball, the only two things I would say, I would caution folks not to ride the roller coaster too high. I mean, when Rob Thompson brought the Phillies to the World Series in 2022. Everybody was talking about how that guy was in the Yankee system for years. They let him get away. Look at his steadying hand. Look how he manages and marries old school with new school. Look at how he manages big personalities. And then you want to talk about taking steps back or forward or progression. Go to the World Series, lose. Go to the NLCS, take a 2-0 lead, bring a 3-2 lead home against an underdog, lose. This year, out in the first round. Regression. So be careful what you wish for, because if you had gotten Rob Thompson, then he'd taken the Yankees backwards, you would be angry. Carlos Mendoza is the same thing this year. Oh, I'd sure love to have the guy who guided the underdog Mets all the way to the NLCS instead of the guy who guided the Yankees to the World Series. I mean, I hear you. I definitely hear you. But you want the hot candidate. I get it. Wait and see if he takes the Mets forward to the World Series next year or back. Wait to see if the talent level increases or decreases. 1 year does not make a career, especially when if you had Rob Thompson doing what he did to the Phillies, to the Yankees, you would be extremely frustrated by that progression. That NLCS last year would have killed you. If the Yankees had taken 2-0 to Cleveland this year, then come home up 3-2 and gotten shut out essentially in game 6 and 7 to lose a series, you'd be losing your mind. I think Rob Thompson's a good manager, but just a word of warning that sometimes people who appear to be handling big cities perfectly and managing big personalities and getting the locker room to buy in, then the result is just not there. And the Phillies kind of look like the boom or bust Yankees right now of previous generations. There's also, in baseball, not a Mike Vrabel out there or a Bill Belichick waiting to save you. Terry Francona already went to the Reds. He was kind of the Bill Belichick out there. No one knew he was available. He was. He's on a different team now. There's no like hot shot coordinator who everyone's like, well, the next team that guy takes over is going to like, what is Mike Vrabel doing right now? Why is he not with a team? This is before we even get into the Deion Sanders and all that. But baseball managerial hires feel somewhat random when they happen.
Yeah.
The former player who's 41 years old, and you go, what was he doing? He was the quality control coach in St. Louis. Okay, I'm interested. I mean, he used to play hard. I get it. Let's see what happens here. So, like, Aaron Boone going from the broadcast booth to the dugout was surprising to Yankee fans at the time, but that's kind of just like how this goes. Familiar name. He hadn't put in the work in the coaching circuit, which is why people were upset. But you're not firing Boone and hiring Buck Showalter. You're not firing Boone and hiring someone that you're immediately – Jorge Posada is not going to be the next Yankees manager. Although, hand on chin, maybe he should be. But there's not like in football you can go, what are we doing with Brian Daboll? Like Mike Vrabel is hanging out in Cleveland right now. Go get him. Baseball, it's not really the same thing. I get it. But there's not this slam dunk home run candidate out there you can instantly swap in for Boone. That's no reason not to take the chance, and I would prefer that they would, and I'm encouraged that they're not committing to Boone beyond this year before they see the results of this season. But the next manager of the Yankees is not going to be someone who you like fist pump for day one for any reason other than it's not Aaron Boone. And people want to bring back Joe Girardi too. I mean, did you see what he did in Philadelphia?
Yeah, no, I don't. Yeah, I don't want to do that. I just would like something different. And like Boone was talking about like a few weeks ago. I don't remember where it was, but 2003 came up again because that's what he's known for, the walk-off home run. Yes. Yeah. And then they talk about the 2003 World Series. We got kind of just like pasted by the Florida Marlins that year.
Shut out, complete game by Josh Beckett beat us in Game 6. I think a lot of us are like, well, the 03 ALCS was the real World Series. Loser.
Yeah. But guess what? That's what he said. He said, you're coming off the high of the biggest rivalry in sports, going 7 games and being hotly contested, and then the energy, the World Series isn't the same. And I'm just like, are you fucking kidding me, dude? Like, while I understand that, sure, but like, what if the Dodgers took that mentality this year with the DS? They all come out and they're saying, well, Dodgers-Padres was essentially the World Series, so that's where we expounded a lot of our energy. They fucking made it through the CS and the World Series, no problem. So, like, your manager is now the guy who was saying, yeah, well, in 03, we pretty much conquered the biggest competition we had en route to the World Series, and then we essentially gave up in the World Series. Like, that's the guy. Okay, sure. Coaching changes, whatever. Fucking shit. What are they doing here? The Mets poached somebody from us. I kind of laughed at that. Somebody messaged me about it. I was just like, whatever.
Yeah. Well, it's a weird one, and hopefully we'll never find out the full impact of this, because I never want to know what Desi Drachelle did with the Yankees, and I don't want to find out it wasn't replicable, and I don't want to find out he was the brains and Matt Blake was the face of the operation or whatever. But, Boone was talking about coaching changes yesterday in the press. He said, our staff's going to be back minus maybe 1 or 2 changes I don't feel comfortable talking about. And a bunch of people were like, whoa, are they firing Luis Rojas? They don't want him to find out in this press conference, as if that's how it works. Like, Boone would go onto this public presser and be like, we are going to fire one man, and he doesn't know yet, but I don't want to say his name, but you'll see. And then they call Rojas immediately. Rojas is like, shit, fuck, God damn it. That's not how it works, and that was never going to be how it works. But it turns out that what they were referring to was Desi Drachelle, who's a assistant pitching coach for the last couple of years since the end of 2021, to Matt Blake, is leaving for the Mets. Fine. He appears to be a pitch shaping guy, has done very good work. Obviously, the Yankees do great work with bullpen arms, less great work with starters in recent years, but still pretty good work. I'm not going to tar and feather their pitching department by any means. Blake has obviously assembled a good staff of like-minded people. I assume he'll be able to replace Drachelle with another guy. But what did get me is usually when coaches leave organizations for other organizations, it's for a promotion, and you have no recourse. If they're hiring like your assistant GM as GM, you have to be like, well, nothing we could do. Best of luck to you moving forward. In this instance, he's not being promoted to pitching coach with the Mets. He's just going from Yankees assistant pitching coach to Mets assistant pitching coach to Jeremy Hefner. I assume that comes with a pay bump, but it doesn't come with a title change. So I don't know if the Yankees were able to step in and say, we'd rather you not go to the Mets, or if they were just like, hey, you know what? That's a lot of money. Fly, enjoy yourself. That's the only thing that's confusing. It reminds me of when they wanted to hire Eric Chavez and then just didn't do it. And then he went to the Mets instead. They brought him in as, what did they do? They brought him in as some sort of weird,
assistant hitting coach.
Assistant hitting coach. And then 2 weeks later, the Mets made him their hitting coach. Now he is the Mets bench coach. And, well, no, actually, he went to the bench coach, and then they made him their hitting coach again. Whatever. But the Mets were able to get Chavez before he even started with the Yankees by saying, you're their assistant hitting coach? Okay, great. We're going to make you our hitting coach. And it was like, all right, well, nothing we can do. Drachelle didn't get that bump. So have we felt the absence of Chavez? Not really. But it is weird that Drachelle just goes, and there's really no basis.
Yeah, I don't know. The Mets have made this a trend, so to me, it's more trolly than anything. Like, the only move that's, I guess, worked out for them so far on this front is Mendoza, and we only have 1 year of evidence of that. I think Mendoza's good, so I think there's going to be much longer than a year, but still, I don't think you can make sweeping judgments after a singular season. The Mets are just annoying. I think that's really what it comes down to. I don't know why. And the other thing is, like, I don't even know why they're using they think the Yankees have a legitimate coaching pipeline. Like, the coaching's been a problem for a long time. Aaron Boone's staff has seen, this is going to be the third overhaul Aaron Boone's staff has seen. I don't know why anybody would think that that's a reputable coaching staff to poach from. Doesn't really make for a successful transition there, in my opinion. Maybe the change of scenery helps because there's a lot of pressure in the Bronx as there is compared to Queens, as Luis Severino told us very quickly when he moved over there. But yeah, and the Yankees have done the reverse incorrect swap, right? Like Luis Rojas is here, and Luis Rojas was not really a good manager. He's
Still here.
arguably worse as a third base coach. I don't know what's happening with him, if there's going to be any changes on that front. In my opinion, you look also at the hitting coach situation. Like Aaron Judge has his own hitting coach. Juan Soto has his own hitting coach.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think Giancarlo Stanton fucking listens to anybody. Gleyber Torres, when he, I think the second half of the year, consulted an outside hitting coach. And
he went to work with Gio Urshela. Like he buckled down and privately worked with Gio Urshela.
Yeah, that was it. Oh, okay. Even better. So Anthony Volpe works with Austin Wells. I don't know what our hitting coach is doing. So I don't know what any of our coaches are doing, really. And I think once again it comes back to the Boone conversation. What value does Boone have outside of being buddy with players? Like Ruben Sierra called him out over this weekend, which I think has it's the lowest hanging fruit, right? You call it Aaron Boone and you cite discipline and you cite lack of fundamentals and blah blah blah. But former players, if anybody is allowed to do this on consistently or loudly, it's former players who have had experience with people managing them. You just look at the changing of the guard, right? And I'm not being old man yelling at cloud here. I'm just speaking how this goes. So Derek Jeter on the broadcast, we saw him during the World Series, throughout the postseason, really. And Joe Torre came on, and he still calls him Mr. T, coach, what have you. And there is a level or a buffer of, I don't even know what you would call it. Is it respect? Is it understanding the boundaries of seniority? I don't know. You hear Aaron Judge in a post-game interview, and he's referring to Boone as Booney. I don't know if that makes a difference. It certainly does ring true that Boone is a player's manager, because I think everybody's just fucking buddies and they're having a good time, and there's no disciplinary measures that have people looking over their shoulders or concerned for their job security or anything, as we've seen for how many years. Like, we'll talk about Gleyber Torres in a minute, but that's one guy of many. You look at Alex Verdugo's performance this year. You look at the revolving door left field situation over the last 3 years, among a million other things. Josh Donaldson, what have you. So I think that there is a point where you have to look in the mirror and acknowledge this as a reality, especially if former players are calling it out. The Yankees don't seem to want to. And I think that, sure, the game is changing in a sense. Like, we don't need to be saluting our manager every time we go out to the field and, being concerned about if we're going to be in come the fourth inning, if we botch a ground ball in the second. But it's flown to the other, side of the pendulum now, where it's like, oh, get away with anything. Nobody really says anything to you. And I guess we'll see what happens tomorrow, won't we? I don't know what you thought about the Sierra call out, but it seemed on brand for what the problem was with that World Series.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, look, I don't know what the deal is with Ruben Sierra's Twitter account. It popped up like 5 days ago, and it's already like tweeting constantly and making somewhat pointed remarks about Aaron Boone and he's also doing like engagement bait. Like, Ruben Sierra tweeted a couple of days ago, Roki Sasaki has filthy stuff. I think he'll easily be a top 5 starter in the league for many years. Which team will land him? Is this really Ruben Sierra? Like, what's going on here? He's got his manager, info in the bio, and seems to be Ruben Sierra is relaunching himself as the new Ben Verlander. I mean, it's nice to see, but he, very accurately diagnosed, after the statement about Boone returning as a steadying presence from Brian Cashman, Sierra said, the role of managers today confuses me. When I played, the manager's role was to win games, not be everyone's friend. Youch. And it's not like Joe Torre's teams never faltered. And it's not like Joe Torre didn't have frosty relationships with his players that were probably a net negative. Moving A-Rod to the 8th spot at the end of the 2006 ALDS partially led to his downfall, because the next season he couldn't make it past the first round, and they decided this is the end of the relationship. But there was a lot of good with Joe Torre and the Yankees before there was any bad, unless you ask Scott Proctor and Paul Quantrill and a few other relievers whose arms fell off. But Most people seem to thrive under Joe Torre. I don't know. He's right. I mean, your goal is to dance that delicate line between being everyone's friend and also being a disciplinarian. And when you win, nothing really matters. It's the other thing that's really gotten me about this Boone stuff the last couple of weeks. I know the decisions were viewed as foolish. Nobody believed in the Nestor Cortez move at the time, and then it didn't work. And then we all got to second guess and talk about how Tim Hill would have done the job. No guarantee. Or Luke Weaver should have stayed in the game after throwing 19 pitches. That's what I would have done to start the inning. Whatever. I would have left Luke Weaver in to start the inning. Anyway, Boone brings in Nestor because he trusts him. He's his guy, right? And it fails. And so everyone lambasts him and says, I don't get this move. Silly, ridiculous. Dave Roberts, over the course of this World Series, makes Blake Trinan throw 40-plus pitches in the 7th and 8th inning of Game 5 because he used Michael Kopech early in Game 5 and then was running out of healthy guys. And then Trinan holds the lead. And then he, in the 9th inning with a 1-run lead, he has to go to Walker Buehler, who had started 2 days earlier because he's his guy and he trusts him. And those are two moves that could have easily backfired. And if they had, Dave Roberts would be viewed as an idiot who gave the Yankees more momentum after this massive mid-game comeback. But instead, Blake Trinan executes, or the Yankees foolishly swing over the top of sliders. And then they don't even make Walker Buehler sweat. He just goes 1, 2, 3. It's the easiest 9th inning you've ever seen. It really makes you question everything you think about how difficult it is to get those final 3 outs. And it's just flip of the coin, right? Aaron Boone makes a move because he believes in his guy. He's going to his trusted personnel, and it fails. Dave Roberts makes the same move twice at the end of the clincher game of the World Series because he had used and unloaded the bullpen earlier in the game. So because of his own hubris, he has to stick with a tired Trinan and a tired starting pitcher to get the final 6 outs of the World Series, and it works. And we talk about how Dave Roberts is a revolutionary, and he managed that bullpen brilliantly to the end. It's just the one thing that sticks with me. I don't think they should stick with Boone ad infinitum just because of continuity is great and just because Dave Roberts succeeded, so Boone will too. It's just worked out for the Dodgers, didn't work out for the Yankees. I don't think Dave Roberts made any smarter a move at the end of Game 5 than Boone did at the end of Game 1. But of course, the Dodgers get the breaks. The Yankees do not. Now here we are talking about how Boone is a lame duck and how Dave Roberts is a world champion.
Yeah, funny how that works, right? Because Dodgers fans had similar gripes with Dave Roberts, with his bullpen decision-making, his overall, the fact that he's kind of a player manager, the fact that he lets situations wither into oblivion. That sound familiar, guys? And all it would have taken was a World Series for that to either completely flip on Boone or for people to just forget about it, which has its pros and cons, right? Like, if you're a very flawed team and you win in spite of your issues, doesn't really mean you should ignore the issues, but winning solves everything. So that's part of the reality. In this case, when you don't win, though, and you're still not addressing the issues, that's where all this comes into play. And this is where the frustration continues to escalate and escalate and escalate. So this offseason's pivotal, isn't it? What's happening so far? Quick thing to get into before we talk about other important matters. Gleyber Torres wiped everything or all Yankee-centric stuff off his social media account. Pretty much confirms goodbye, if anything. If Brian Cashman's comments didn't, if the fact that he wasn't already dangled in trade talks on 3 separate occasions didn't, if him being the only player disciplined by the Yankees, despite many other players warranting discipline, didn't, so on and so forth. But yeah, this is rest in peace to all of the Gleyber extension people out there. You know who you are, you know how long you were peddling that. And I hope you can realize now that you were wrong and incorrect.
Yeah, he is gone. He did not get the qualifying offer. He was gone anyway. He's gonna be a Mariner or a Blue Jay, I think.
Mariners just feel so appropriate.
Felt like the right fit last offseason. Felt like the right fit at the end of 2022. You wonder and you hope that there was never an opportunity to do like, hey, let's do Gleyber Torres for Brian Wu or whatever. Because if there was, I'll eat my face off like George Pickens on a Commanders DB. But yeah, Gleyber to the Mariners, Gleyber to Toronto, 2-year, $32 million deal or whatnot. 3-year, $48 million deal, maybe at the very least. But if you were still holding out hope, even after Brian Cashman said, I don't want to talk about the things he doesn't do well, which was pretty much a death sentence. Hey, we wish him well. Thanks for everything. He's good at some stuff. He's not good at other stuff. Isn't that interesting? I mean, you're not bringing that guy back for any grand expenditure. And he went ahead and wiped his Instagram. It's always impossible to say with certainty because I'm not tracking these guys' Instagrams all year long. So I don't know who they follow and who they don't. So I don't know who they unfollow and when they did it. But Gleyber Torres has unfollowed the Yankees on Instagram. Has been another popular sentiment. You check his Instagram follows. It's true. He does not follow the Yankees. I can't tell you if he ever did, although I assume he did. I can't tell you when he stopped following them because I'm not on there every single day. But I do know that right now he's not following the Yankees. His profile is a World Baseball Classic picture. He is not coming back. And shame. It's a shame that he wasn't able to build on his 2018-2019 peak. I think the Yankees can do better. But the shame is, I don't know if they will do better. I think they're going to put their chips in the Juan Soto basket and try for the internal upgrade. Upgrade, stasis, different, just a different vibe. Caleb Durbin, I mean, Boone called him a stud yesterday. Brian Cashman made it clear that Caleb Durbin would have a role on this team in the immediate future. Kind of feels like he's going to enter spring training, not even needing to compete for the job, but really just needing to show them that he can do it. And then if he does, he'll get the job like Anthony Volpe. Remember Oswald Peraza? That's an interesting guy. Caleb Durbin played third base in the Arizona Fall League All-Star game over the weekend, made a diving play at third base, through to first, worked. It looked nice. I mean, he didn't quite have the gun. Didn't have the gun that Jazz Chisholm has, but diving stop made the play. Can play third if needed. Can obviously play second as well. Ribby double into the gap in his first at-bat. 2 hits in the game. Set the stolen base record for the Arizona Fall League once regular season play resumed after the All-Star game. He is now the sole record holder over 2 years in the Arizona Fall League. He's 48 for 52 stealing bags. If that translates, he certainly brings another dimension to this team. He has also struck out over the course of his, I want to get this stat right because this is just patently absurd. Over the course of his entire career. And I know people are jaded now that when they hear, oh, bat to ball skills, that means contact, that means no power, that means this guy sucks. I get it. But Caleb Durbin, college, summer ball, all affiliated minor leagues. This is from Matt Cardos, Somerset Patriots writer who's covered Yankees prospects for a while. Durbin, in 2,376 plate appearances, has struck out 152 times. Aaron Judge, counting this postseason, struck out 191 times in 2024 alone. Aaron Judge hits 50-plus homers. He's immensely valuable. He's a great defender. He's got a hose for an arm. He's the MVP of the American League. Caleb Durbin is not better than Aaron Judge, but Caleb Durbin is absurdly talented at one skill that the Yankees have forsaken in recent years, and he had a mid-800s OPS at AAA. Like, we're not talking about a pure singles hitter with a 642 OPS who never strikes out. 10 homers, 275 average, 388 OBP, 839 OPS in 2024 at AAA. Hit 304 in limited time at AA and AAA the year before with an 822 OPS. He's a completely different guy since joining the Yankee system. Posted 800-plus OPS in both full seasons after being traded for Lucas Litke. Hit for more power last year than he had the previous year. 25 doubles, 10 bombs, and 2 triples to tack on to that. And again, the stolen bags cannot be denied. He's what you hope Anthony Volpe, if Anthony Volpe can translate that AAA success to the big league level and so can Durbin, then you have one hell of a long-term middle infield with some real cornerstones. Risky to turn the position over to him? Absolutely. First base is still open, by the way. But an absurdly talented player who does things that the other Yankees do not do. And he doesn't really sacrifice power. He's reworking his swing. He's made changes to his swing since joining the Yankees program between 2022 and present. Jason Dominguez, Brian Cashman, and Aaron Boone said is going to have a larger role next year. Durbin, I assume, will also have a larger role next year. Anthony Volpe, maybe take some of what you learn in the playoffs, apply it to next year. Austin Wells, don't get hit in the hand by a pitch. Don't have a September swoon. I like what you did for a good portion of the season. I don't know. It's risky to turn so many positions over to prospects, but also it could be extremely valuable.
I don't view this as risky, and I don't know if I don't even know why. I mean, in my opinion, and this could probably be wrong because maybe I'm undervaluing the impact of experienced major league talent, but like I don't know how much worse you can get at second base than Gleyber Torres when Gleyber Torres was at his worst. And we saw mostly the worst out of Gleyber Torres over the last 4 years. So yes, his flashes and his potential probably outweigh the totality of what someone like Caleb Durbin could like possibly bring to the table on a consistent basis. But like, if you're talking about bringing a different type of athleticism to the table, if you're talking about bringing versatility to the table, if you're talking about more speed, steals a lot of bases, if we're talking about a different hitting profile, I think it's totally worth the gamble. Because what else do you want out of a prospect, right? Like, Caleb Durbin came over in the Lucas Licky trade, and he has only gotten better from his first outing, his first stretch of games with the Yankees in the minor league system, up through now the Arizona Fall League, which is the highest level of minor league competition, or at least it used to be. I don't know. I don't think every organization sends its top 6 prospects anymore.
No,
but they're definitely sending.
There are some superstars in there, and the Padres put their big international guys down there, DeVries and Salas, like big names.
Yeah, it's big boys looking for extended run, and they're also under the assumption that teams will be watching closely. So the stakes are a little bit higher. But the reality with the Yankees payroll and with the Yankees overall roster is that they have to do this in some capacity. And I understand doing it with Volpe to an extent. We don't have to get too in the weeds with it, but like, they believed in him. They wanted him. And part of that is good enough for me. The only issue I have with it is that you're inconsistent across the board with that. Like you just mentioned, Oswald Peraza. Who is he? What is he doing? Why did they waste that talent from every angle possible? You wasted not buying more time at shortstop for Volpe to develop longer in AAA. You wasted it to not build a younger middle infield with one of them capable of playing second base. And you wasted it on the trade market. You had a top 5 shortstop prospect, and you let him wither away into nothing. And now he's either untradeable or useless from your organizational perspective. So stop doing that, first of all. Secondly, someone like Durbin, who is a breath of fresh air when it comes to, look, based on what we've seen, defense, athleticism, effort, versatility, so on and so forth. Like, I don't see this as a bad decision if the Yankees wanted to keep Jazz Chisholm at third, or if they wanted to shuffle things around and maybe put Durbin at third, try it out. Because if you're going to pay Juan Soto, and you have to upgrade the bullpen, and you have to add another starter, and you have 3 salaries in Carlos Rodon, DJ LeMahieu, and Marcus Stroman that you can't really get rid of under any circumstances. Like Joel Sherman did pitch, maybe absorbing all of Carlos Correa's money and giving the Twins one of Stroman or LeMahieu because of their the team being sold or in the process of being sold. And getting assets off the books like that are important, but like, I don't think Carlos Correa is just going to cost. This isn't a Giancarlo Stanton situation where they were getting a $300+ million contract from the Marlins, who were desperate to shed all of that money. Like, the Yankees essentially got rid of nobody and got $30 million in cash. Like, that deal's not happening. But maybe it is. That would be cool. Probably worth a lengthier conversation at some point.
I love it.
Nonetheless, you're going to have to go into next year with, a decent amount of your roster being fairly young and inexperienced. So, like, you hope year 3 for Volpe is better. That's that. You hope Dominguez can consistently play the outfield and help with the alignment and the left-handed bat production. And now maybe you throw Ben Rice and or Durbin into the mix while retaining Soto and getting some more veterans for the bench. Like, I don't know, but the reality is that you can't keep signing marquee free agents for every position. Maybe they make a creative trade. Maybe they pick up someone like Jorge Polanco and put him in the infield, let go by the Mariners because of lackluster 2024. That was perhaps a result of a knee injury. I don't know, but look, like there's not going to be multiple marquee signings this year. There's going to be 1.5, if that, and then the rest is going to be patchwork stuff. And the whole point here is to believe in your young talent. I'm not saying anoint Caleb Durbin the starter. Again, it comes back to like year one with Anthony Volpe. Should Anthony Volpe played 162 games in year one? No. He had stretches of baseball where he was unwatchable, where he was providing negative impact, and the fact that there was no, okay, you're getting a breather this week, or you know what, AAA for a couple weeks, or you know what, we're gonna your backup for now. We're gonna go with somebody else for the next few weeks and see what happens. There's none of that. So if the Yankees want to insert Caleb Durbin in the infield and say you're on this infield until further notice, figure it out, then no, I don't support that. But if they say, hey, Caleb Durbin, give us a solid spring training, you'll be starting at second or third, and your job security will be up in the air pending performance, then great. That sounds awesome. Like, I think Caleb Durbin, of all people, would agree that that's the way it should be. He hasn't necessarily earned a full-time major league job yet. He's only played 281 games in the minor leagues, dealt with a bunch of injuries. We like the player profile. But the reality is that this is going to have to be the balance that the Yankees strike on their roster with so many high-paid players and a willingness to reset the luxury tax, or at least get below the third threshold. So this is what we're looking at. This is where prospects become important, and this is where they become valuable to the conversation. Not in the sense where you're just stockpiling a bunch of talent and you're excited that you're going to roll the dice and one of them is going to be a superstar. But it's like, nope, we have a talented guy who's 24 years old and who's lighting it up in AAA in the Arizona Fall League. Let's give him a shot next year. We have a vacancy. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, it sure is. And I'd just like to see him get some reps with the ones at spring training against top pitchers before they pull them and before they just start going to the bullpen and showing us random 19-year-olds who are not going to make a big league impact. It would be nice. And the whole Yankees offseason, before we sign off, does still hinge on Juan Soto. You want to talk about there aren't going to be a lot of major additions? It's probably going to be literally one major addition or zero major additions. It's Juan Soto, and it's a $700 million contract. And the meetings are beginning. I talked a little bit with Robert Murray this morning as well about the timeline of events. There have been some hints from Jeff Passan that, hey, maybe this could be even quicker than the winter meetings. I think the anticipation is it will not be, but the real meetings are starting next week. The Blue Jays go first in California, then go the Red Sox. Bob Nightingale actually predicted Soto to the Blue Jays today in a prediction piece published today. Everyone else in that piece predicted the Yankees. Weird, because I think a lot of Yankee fans are sort of resigned to the Mets having the advantage, or at least it being a 50-50 split or 55-45. But the only teams mentioned were Yankees figure out a way to get it done, or Jays overwhelm everybody with a massive offer. Interesting, one eyebrow is currently raised. But the Jays, the Red Sox, Giants rumors, that's also the Giants reportedly maybe meeting with him, but the Mets are going next, and then the Yankees round out that first group of meetings in California. And so Aaron Boone will be there. Hal Steinbrenner will be there. I called it rancid vibes over the weekend that the Mets announced their meeting first, and the Yankees said, well, maybe, I don't know if Juan needs one. He's familiar with the organization. But either way, they got their shit together and decided, okay, we should all probably go meet Juan Soto. And now all of a sudden, the vibes are a little bit better because they have the final meeting of this group of teams, which would indicate to me, I still don't think he's going to be ready to make a decision at the end of that, but it does feel like I gathered info, Scott gathered info from the Blue Jays, Red Sox, Mets, maybe the Giants. Here's what they said. Here's the biggest number on the board. Work with that information. There you go. I like my time with the Yankees. You're clearly not changing much. Aaron Judge is coming back. Anthony Volpe's coming back. Gleyber Torres, hate to see him go. Excited for him to go to the Mariners. Maybe Gleyber will sway him to the Blue Jays. I'm not going to wink at that because who knows? Maybe it's true. But it does feel like, okay, we'll give the Yankees the information they need. Here you go, match it. There was some Yankee personnel person over the weekend who anonymously said, if it comes down to money, we're not going to be beat or whatnot. I don't believe that, I think. the Yankees have every advantage, but maybe not money.
Yeah.
But if they're the final meeting and they have a chance to match a number, and the Dodgers are not involved, according to Jeff Passan, they'll only be involved if the market craters. Spoiler alert: the market's not gonna crater. That's not
imagine.
What does that mean?
What would that
do
take?
1 year?
What would that take? What would
I
the
saw
market
somebody
cratering take?
floating the Bryce Harper Dodgers offer, something like absurd front loading, like it ends up being a $550 million contract, but it's $60 million a year for the first couple of years.
He's gonna get that anyway.
Yeah, I don't think that's an example of cratering.
Yeah, short-term high A, like back when Bryce Harper was signed. What was that? 2019. That was like 5-6 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
There was some unique advantage if you were like, all right, how about $50 million a year for 3 years, and then you hit free agency again when you're 29. Does that sound good? Like there was at least an appeal there. Juan Soto is not doing that, and even if he were to do that, Scott Boras would do his best to talk his way out of it, because we know that this is all about, hitting free agency a second time at this rate when you're probably going to sign their second largest contract in MLB history doesn't hold any weight. Like, doesn't matter if you're hitting free agency now, next year, the year after that. Like, Juan Soto's Juan Soto. He's getting paid. So at this rate, the market cratering would be him committing a crime that he's awaiting charges or trial for. That would be the only thing that would have to happen.
And I don't think the Dodgers would be interested if that happened, to be honest.
Yeah, I know they've had a lot of issues with that in the past, so they would not be. Correct.
Yeah. But that's where we're at, and the Yankees are meeting with Juan Soto, and that's fantastic. Getting the last meeting feels like a don't get your hopes up situation, but it's a sliver of something. It's like if the Mets were getting the last meeting, you'd feel shitty, right? So it's at least something.
Yeah. I'm trying to figure out the veracity of someone like the Red Sox's interest. Yeah. Because I don't think the Blue Jays are an attractive destination for many reasons. The Giants are just no. Like it's a no. The Giants are no until they reestablish themselves as a threat in any capacity. Buster Posey is not just going to start making wheeling and dealing and bringing the best players to the Bay Area in 2 months on the job. The Mets are the only other direct competition. So like the meeting stuff was weird, but again, it was very Yankees. Like they don't provide all the details, even if the details are like somewhat meaningless. It's like, you can't just tell us if Hal Steinbrenner is going to be at the meeting. Like, does anybody fucking care about that? Who cares? Like, who cares if people know or don't? But that's what the Yankees do. And you're right. Like, money is not a factor here. Juan Soto is getting the money, whether it's the destination just doesn't matter. So like, that's where the Yankees are actually at a disadvantage. Like, the Yankees would be at a greater advantage if we're talking about someone like, who can I compare this to? Maybe someone like Sean Manaea, who had a good year and is maybe looking at like $15 million a year on his next contract. Mm-hmm. Like, the Yankees are at an advantage where they could be like, all right, how does $20 million a year sound? And they can up the ante there. You're not upping the ante with Juan Soto. So it's not like the Yankees can outbid the field and sit there and be like, well, we did it. Juan Soto's number is Juan Soto's number. Like, there's no real massive gap. And then essentially the Yankees are already at a little bit of an advantage because they offered the setting. I think the setting did what it needed to do in terms of convincing Juan Soto that this is a legacy destination. Mm-hmm. And they just have to remain within the ballpark of Steve Cohen, who's the richest owner now in the sport. So gone are the days, honestly, of the Yankees wielding the financial power that we talk about. It's with high-end free agents, because high-end free agents already expect to get that number from the Yankees. High-end free agents might even look at the Yankees and say, you know what, I know I'm going to get this money elsewhere, and I'll deal with, a quarter of the shit in another market in terms of the fan backlash and the unforgiving media and so on and so forth. But Soto, like, I don't know. I'm not really worried about this pursuit. I think he's coming back to the Yankees. It's just hammering out the details and seeing what that offer is from the Mets. Like, if the Mets give him $700 million, then like that's it, and it's not happening. But if there's a world in which where the offer from the Mets is 625, and then the Yankees say, you know what, maybe 575, 550, we got a deal, and that's that. Like, there is, you heard what his dad said. You know that he's family oriented. You know that the Bronx is essentially an extension of the Dominican Republic in some respects, especially when it comes to the baseball community. You know that he can quickly get home to the DR from the New York metro area with all the international flights and the many airports. So I think that holds weight. And I think the pinstripes and the history are also very important to him. So whether they're the first meeting, whether they're the last meeting, doesn't really matter to me. I'm not really concerned about it. I'd love to have him back. If he's not, it is what it is. And I think that the Yankees could spend smartly to address that. Or it means they have to completely retool. So to me, it's shrug. And you wait and you see what happens, and you can't really invest too much into it because he's going to explore free agency. He's going to exhaust every potential option that he has. And it'll be on the Yankees' allure to speak to the rest of that and convince him this is where he needs to be.
Yeah, I don't understand the Red Sox at all after they wouldn't, like, I don't know why you wouldn't overpay crazy splurge for Shohei Ohtani last year when you were rumored, but now all of a sudden you do $700 million for Juan Soto. I don't think it's it's obviously a very appealing destination. I'm the first to admit I never discount the Red Sox. You'll know that if you've watched this podcast or listened to it before, but it's just it would be a bizarre splurge for them. Especially because they have a great outfield and a great outfield pipeline, and they're pretty close, and they need to spend on frontline pitching, and every team has a budget, whether you want them to have one or not. And Blake Snell and Max Fried makes a lot more sense for them than Juan Soto. Again, Juan Soto is a megastar, but Max Fried, Blake Snell, bullpen,
Willie Adames.
Like, there are a lot of things the Red Sox could do to be instant. They could be contenders next year without Juan Soto. The Yankees could not be. So it would be weird for them to splash on Juan Soto without also splashing on. I mean, they'd have to spend $1 billion this offseason.
Yeah.
They would have to get Soto and Fried and Adames, which is, I mean, again, great team. If the Red Sox want to get back in the mix, go ahead and do it. But they would probably have to spend $1 million and then also trade some untouchable outfielders. Trade Duran and trade Roman Anthony. I don't know. I like where the Yankees are at.
I don't know.
But if they don't, if they don't spend the requisite money to bring back Soto, Juan Soto is the only guy for which I would agree that Aaron Judge can keep bouncing around the outfield. If the Yankees don't bring Juan Soto back, Aaron Judge back to right field, please, immediately.
Easiest decision, yeah.
No more center field. Like, I want Juan Soto back as much as anybody, but he also does create some weird defensive liabilities, which we saw last year. It's an imperfect fit. It's also amazing to have Juan Soto, and your life changes when you get him, and your life changes for the worse when he leaves. But if you don't bring Juan Soto, I mean, it does solve some defensive problems. Aaron Judge could go back where he should go, and then he could eventually move to DH or move to first base or whatever. I don't want to entertain that, though. I want Juan Soto back. We will see you on Thursday to recap anything we learned between Tuesday and Thursday. We haven't learned much. To start the offseason. We really haven't. And yet still somehow hour and 6 minute podcast. So, you know what? maybe we kick ass. Maybe we kick ass.
Maybe we're losers.
Might be losers, huge dorks. We'll see you back here, fellow losers, for another episode on Thursday afternoon, 2:00 Eastern. I'm Adam Weinrib. You can find me on Twitter at Adam Weinrib. Got to stop saying that, though, because I'm also on Blue Sky now. And I think a lot of other people are as well, getting followers there. So, hey, if you got that, I'll be there too. Thomas Carannante, where can the people find you?
I'm at Tommy's_takes. You can find us at the official Yanks Go Yard account at Yanks Go Yard FS. Please like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. We'd appreciate it very much. Find our podcast anywhere that you get your podcast. We're probably there. Head on over to yanksgoyard.com. Tons of content there, a lot of off-season stuff, bunch of stuff we don't talk about on the podcast because we simply don't have the time. Unless you want to hear us ramble on for 3 hours. But like we said, hour and 7 minutes, already pushing it. So we appreciate your guys' support. Keep reading, keep listening. It's going to be a long off season, and I know this month is going to drag along and feel like forever, but we'll at least have Thanksgiving in between, and then hopefully a nice Christmas gift at the end of it. So we'll talk to you guys on Thursday, and have a good one.
Two of the greatest holidays, by the way.
Yeah,
Hope
truly.
you're enjoying the start of the holiday season, Halloween. See ya. Bye. It's Peppermint.
Bye-bye.
Let's make some signings. Let's make some trades. Let's remake the Yankees roster. Let's do good work. Let's live in the world. Let's be better at baseball than we were last year. Aaron Boone, 2020.